Hi, this is Matrixity from Matrixity Muses. Welcome to my matrix. It's a spooky matrix today. It's Friday the 13th, and it's evening. It's the gloaming hour, the time when sunset is just about gone, and the things that go bump in the night are trying to make their way out. Yeah, so spooky time today. Have you had some bad luck on Friday the 13th, or just some bad luck in general? What about spooky things that have happened to you? Well, today we're going to talk about some bad luck things that have happened to me when I've had some adventures. Okay, and they all involve the woods. Now today, when I think about going into the woods, the only thing that comes to mind is, oh my gosh, what's the name of that movie with the witches in the woods? Not The Ring. Oh my gosh, it'll come to me. But it's the one with the girl and the three boys, and they go into the woods and they get lost and they end up dying, and the whole witch thing comes out with the little sticks. Oh my gosh, I don't know why this just left my the Blair Witch Project. That's it. So when I think of the woods today, the only thing that comes to mind is the Blair Witch Project, and I don't ever want to go in the woods again. Now, when I was in my 20s, I'd say from like maybe mid-20s, like 22 to 30s, I went to the woods all the time, alone, totally in the woods alone. This is when I lived in North Carolina, and there wasn't a beach. This is when I lived in Durham and Chapel Hill, and there wasn't a beach around. Now, sometimes I would make the trek all the way to Carolina Beach to get to the water, but most of the time, if I wanted to get to water, I would go to the Eno River Park, which was located in Durham. Quick and easy to get to, and it was a beautiful place on the Eno River. I loved going there. I probably went there, I'd say almost once a week, and it was, there were paths in the woods. There was the Eno River was there. The river was there, so there were lots of suspension bridges over the river, and it was a lovely place. There were like some run-down cabins in the woods that were historic, and they had little plaques. You go in and read them. So I was always in that woods by myself because I had friends, of course, but were they the outdoorsy people? No. Did they ever want to go with me to the woods? No. I could never get anyone to go with me. Well, I take that back. I got one person, and after our experience, she did not want to go to the woods with me again. So this is about a couple of bad luck experiences in the woods. Not quite Blair Witch, but today I would not be going into the woods like I used to. Well, the first thing that happened to me was my friend Lori and I convinced her to go hiking with me one day. And I went hiking all the time. And this was the type of hiking I did. Yes, there were trails to follow, but the hiking that I really liked to do was to actually just make a path in the woods. There was no trail. I would just take up in the woods. I'd have my can of spray paint with me, and I would mark trees so that I would be able to find where I went in, and then be able to find my way back out by following my marked trees back out of the woods. And I'm sure that was probably illegal, me marking up those trees with spray paint, but I had to get out. So one day I convinced Lori that we had to go hiking, because where I wanted to take her in the woods, you eventually came to a clearing where there were these huge boulders, and we could go rock climbing. And I had done that before, so I was going to take her with me. We were going to go rock climbing that day. Now, she was up for the walking through the woods, but she wasn't too sure about the rock climbing. So we hiked in. I was the lead, of course, and I was marking all the trees as we went. We probably hiked an hour through the woods. There was no path. We did not go on a path, so I just made my own path and marked the trees as we went in. And we got to the clearing where the rocks were. And these were huge, huge boulders, big boulders, probably about, I would say a good 10 feet. Oh my gosh, mosquitoes are killing me today. 10 feet tall, 15 feet tall. And so there were some slight grooves, but you could actually climb up to the top of the rocks and get on top. And it was amazing up there. So that's what we did. Well, we got up there, we had lunch on top of the boulders, and then it was time to get down. And suddenly, somehow, I couldn't get down. I kind of somehow got panicked, and I couldn't get down. And I probably spent about an hour trying to ease myself down front ways, ease myself down backwards. I couldn't get a good hold on the rocks. Everything was slippery. It was not good. So I told Lori, I said, I've marked the path. I think you're going to have to go get the fire department because I can't get down from here. And I was really high. I was up on the higher rock where she was not. And she said, you marked the path, but I wasn't looking. I was just following you blindly into the woods. I can't find my way out of here. I said, listen, I've marked every tree with this orange neon paint. You'll be able to find your way out. There's no path, which is the first tree is right behind you. If you just go straight line, you will get back to the car and you can call the fire department to come get me and lead them back in following the same path. She's like, Mary Catherine, I can't do that. I didn't watch what you're doing. I don't think I could get out to the car again. And then if I did, I don't think I could get them back to you. I was like, oh Lord, we're in a mess now. So then I said, okay. I said, just let me sit here, calm down for like 30 minutes. So it was getting dark. I mean, we'd been in the woods all day, lunching and all that kind of stuff, hiking. And it was probably like around 5-ish and it was going to be dark soon. So I said, I talked to myself saying, we got to get out of these woods. You're going to have to somehow get yourself calm, get down this rock. So I sat there and I talked to myself. And finally I said, okay, Lori, I'm coming down. And sure enough, somehow I was able to find those very, very faint handholds and footholds because there was really nothing. It was kind of like a flat rock climbing up with nothing. And I got myself down from the rock. And I've never been so happy to be down from a rock in all my life. And we went home. We followed my path out of the woods and we got home with no problem. But trust me, she did not want to go to the woods with me again after being stuck on a rock and me telling her that she was going to have to go find her way alone and get the fire department to come get me. So she didn't want to go to the woods with me anymore after that. So I continued to go by myself. No worries. It was the Eno River, my favorite place. It was the most calm, beautiful place you'd ever want to go. So one day, this is a spring day, what I would like to do is to take my lunch. I would take my lunch and I would go when the water was low, when the tide, not even a tide with the river, but then when the river was low, I would go climb out on giant boulders. Again, giant boulders. I'm climbing on boulders. Giant boulders in the middle of the river and sit. Now, when the river was low, we're talking low, so low that it's just like a trickle of water. You can like walk on out on the rocks. And the boulder was probably like the size of a car, or no, bigger than that, size of an SUV as far as the height, SUV, high. So I would climb up on that rock and I would eat my lunch up there. I'd have my book, I'd be reading my book up there. And then I would go, come down, walk the suspension bridge, go home. Well, one day I was eating my lunch and I heard a rumbling. I thought, wow, what's that rumbling? We're gonna get rain today because I checked the forecast and we weren't supposed to get rain. And then suddenly there were some other people hiking the trails to my, I was sitting on the boulder. They would be to my left on a trail that was kind of like up in the woods on a angle. And they began yelling for me to get out of the water, to get off the rock, get off the rock, get off the rock. And so I was like, why? You got to get off the water, get out of the rock. And so I started, getting down, climbing down from the rock. And they said, hurry, you got to get off the rock, get off the rock. And they were really frantic. And then I was like, oh my God, something's wrong. I don't know quite what it is. But the rumbling was getting louder. The louder and louder the rumbling got. I thought, what is the world is that happening to me? So then as soon as I got down from the rock, I noticed the water was not the absolute dry riverbed that I walked in for, just a trickle of mud, but the water was now ankle deep and it was flowing kind of rapidly. And then I was in the middle of the riverbed. So it took me a while to get from the rock to the shore. And so by this time, those people, they had actually come down to the riverbed where I was because they knew something I didn't know, that I was going to be in really bad trouble really quickly. And they were still screaming for me to get out of there, to run, to come to them as fast as possible. So I began to kind of like run. And as I did, the water got higher and higher and higher and stronger. And they literally, at the end, they reached their hands out, both of them, this man and this woman who I didn't know, and they grabbed both my hands and they yanked me out of the river. Because what was happening was, it was a flash flood. Now, where we are in North Carolina, the mountains were above us, above Durham. So what had happened was water from the mountains had suddenly come down and a flash flood through the Eno River. And there I was in the middle of it, about to be swept away and die. And they saved me. They got me out of the water. They said that rumbling was the water coming down and you needed to get out of there. So thank God for them. So they pulled me out of the water just in time. I mean, I was saturated probably from the thigh down, totally saturated. And when I looked back, once I got up on the, they pulled me up on the shore, on the bank of the riverbank, my rock, which was about the height of an SUV, was totally submerged. My lunch was up there. I left everything. My lunch, my thermos, which I loved because it kept everything hot and everything cold when I went to the river. My book was gone. I don't know what I was reading the day, but everything was gone. So all the things I had the day, because I usually carried with me a canteen of water, a thermos of something to drink, my lunch, my book, a compass. Granted, I wasn't all that great with a compass, but I had a compass because I really needed to know where I was going if I was getting lost in those woods of the Eno River. So I, thanked them so much. All my things were gone. They said, the water was coming. They knew what was happening, but I had never experienced that before. So I did not know that was actually water coming down from the mountains. I thought it was thunder, like it was going to rain later on that day. And they says, no. She says, and the lady explained to me, whenever you're on the river and you hear that deep rumbling in the background, it was like crazy deep rumbling, that is water coming your way, and you have to get out of there or you'll be swept away. So I sat there on the riverbank and just watched the water because, water, I'm fascinated by water, whether it be the beach or the river, and just watched it. It was like an angry river. It was angry and flowing and turbulent water. And it did that probably for like maybe 20 minutes. And then slowly but surely, the river began to calm down. It got slower. The water calmed down. It was still extremely high. My boulder was still covered. But eventually it began, I could see the top of the boulder I was sitting on, and the water calmed down and began to flow just still very quickly. And eventually after about an hour, the water kind of calmed down and it was much lower. Probably it was mid boulder by then, but still all my things were gone. I did look for them downriver to see whether or not they could be like thrown up on a riverbank somewhere on a trail, near a trail, but everything was totally gone. So I don't know where all my stuff went. But that was one experience as far as going to the woods. With Lori and the rock climbing, bad luck there with that one, getting stuck on the boulder. And then almost being swept away in a flash flood on the Eno River. Yeah, that wasn't good. So, when I think about that, going to the woods, I've always loved that. But nowadays, going to the woods alone, I went by myself everywhere alone because I didn't have friends who were outdoorsy. So I had no problem going anywhere by myself alone. But today, because people tend to be kind of crazy, I would not want to go to the woods alone. I'd have to go with someone else. And even with that, crazy people are out here. You never know what's going to happen. You really have to be secure and very sure that you're in the right place at the right time. So going to the woods, I go to our local parks around here, to the plantations. I mean, there's woods and trails you can walk in. But I don't know if I would ever go back to the Eno River because the Eno River was really rustic. And the one place I haven't been here locally that I want to go is the Kaw Interpretive Center, and I hear that's very rustic too. The Eno River was very rustic, very woodsy. There were trails carved out, but then there were a lot of things that weren't trailed and you can actually walk through. So I don't think I'd ever do that type of woodsy walking again because it's not as safe as it used to be. And when I look back on it, I might have been kind of crazy just going out there by myself in the middle of the woods alone and think nothing of it. I guess times were safer. I felt safe. I felt secure in those woods. And I felt that if somebody was going to come after me, that I could probably outrun them at that time and get away. And I know when I lived there at one time, there was a rapist who was in another part of this park was big. The Eno River was very, very big. The park was big. So on the far side of Durham at the Eno River, he was over there attacking people as lots of people jogged in those trails. And so I think he was a rapist and he was attacking people, but he was not where I was. Who's to say he can't move around? But he never came where we were. And I think about maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 people were attacked by him. They did eventually catch him. But that was the only bad thing I heard about. And when I realized where he was, which is kind of far from where I was, I still felt safe in going to the river. So those are probably, and I've probably had some other bad luck things too, but those are the two main ones that I can think of. Oh, wow, it's getting really dark now. You know, as far as having bad luck on an adventure, those are probably the two main things that stand out in my mind as far as, you know, things not to do. Don't go to the woods by yourself anymore. Always take your compass, and just know that when you are in the middle of a riverbank and you decide to go in the middle of a riverbank, you hear low rumbling in the background. That is not thunder, people. That is water coming your way. You need to get the heck off the river because you're about to be swept away in a flash flood. Oh my goodness. So now I have learned something through those experiences. And it's the 13th. So those are my bad luck experiences. Have you had any bad luck experiences of your own? Let me know. I want to hear about them. And also please subscribe. Thank you to everyone who's subscribed so far. I really do appreciate it. So please subscribe, comment, like, and share. I do want to try to grow my channel. And since it is the 13th, remember, don't let any black cats cross your path. Don't step on any cracks too. You might break your mother's back. All right? See you later, alligator. Bye.